evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Racing Team Astra Invitational for 2022. Tonight marks round one of the 3-round series, where it's all going to be about being the best of the best and making it to that final and walking away with the ultimate prize, being our invitational winner. But of course, we start at the beginning. It is round number 1 tonight, and we'll be focusing on pool 4. We've got 4 full pools racing in parallel, and we'll be focusing on the full 4 pools. And my goodness, are you going to be looking at a very hotly contested pool over tonight's racing. Our schedule for tonight, as may be seen on screen, is as follows. Times in Greenwich Mean Time, GMT that is, or UTC. At what is, not 9 o'clock, my goodness, that is 9 o'clock in South African time, but it is the case at 7 o'clock in the evening, so in approximately 15 minutes time, we'll be getting underway with the qualifying session, a 10-minute session to determine our grid order for the purposes of our race, and then at 10 past 7, we'll be kicking off with the race, 27 laps around our chosen circuit. In the commentary box tonight, you have myself, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain a Spit, depending on what media you follow me on, and I'll be bringing you all of your racing action throughout the entirety of tonight on one of 2 media platforms where you can tune in. Firstly, if you are Twitch inclined, you can tune in via my Twitch channel, that is TX141 on Twitch, or if you are YouTube inclined, you can also tune in via my YouTube channel, that is channel TX141 TX on YouTube, also listed as Paul Walsh. Now, we talked about our drivers and the fact this is going to be a very hotly contested pool. Well, let's give you that driver list and who exactly is competing in pool 4. Well, you can see here, we do have 13 drivers. We've got RTA, and that's Racing Team Astra's Safa. We've got GTBE, that's Gran Turismo Boardless Esports Pipo Oli. We've also got NLR's Prelude Gen 04. We've also got RTA Fluffy Butt, RTA Viper, GTB Pierre Chatura. We've also got KBR's Bridgens in the 7th spot there, RTA's Gale 111. And then in what is the 9th spot, KBR's Gilla Baron. And then in the 10th spot, we have Aria P3R 84, we'll be referring to him as P3R from this point onwards. Then in the 11th slot, we do have what is John Avisa, and then in the 12th slot, Chicken Wing at 66, and then the last driver to make it into pool number 4 is GT KRS Pappy. And indeed, our 13 drivers here looking to go intense for the racing over the course of tonight's proceedings. Now, if you're wondering, how did they exactly get assigned to pool number 4? Well, in the build-up to the Invitational, there were a number of pre-qualifying sessions, and it was the case that our drivers were expected to be targeting a particular threshold time, and they had to be within that time in order to make it into the qualification. And indeed, these drivers are all making their way into pool number 4. But with that in mind, our drivers are being able to achieve that result. It is going to be a very tight lobby, and we're expecting all 13 drivers to really bring it to the table. And the circuit that's been selected, well, it is none other than the Red Bull Ring. We're at Spielberg in Styrian region of Austria for the 10-corner circuit, a circuit which is renowned for its reputation, where it's been featured in Formula 1 or other series. It is renowned for great overtaking, a great straight line slipstream battles, and indeed a good number of corners in the middle and final sector, which will definitely throw in a few surprises with regards to potential overtakes. As you can see from the image provided to us here by Pitlane02, the user from wikipedia.org, this circuit all kicks off on a start-finish straight that goes up to Niki Lauda curve into turn 1 before the long run up through the left-hand Kinker 2 into Remus corner at turn 3. We then got another long straight, albeit a downhill straight, into the downhill braking zone for Schlossgold of turn number 4, and then we move into the more tight and technical section running from turn 5 all the way through to turn number 8, the completion of the Worth curve. Then we run up towards the Jochen Ring corner at turn number 9 before completing the lap at Red Bull Mobile corner, and that is turn number 10 before going on to another lap. Now, as for our rules tonight, we have a good number of rules in general, and that is firstly, our drivers shall be driving Group 3 or GT3 class cars. That are cars that are delegated to the GT3 class as per Gran Turismo Sport. That is the sim platform that we are racing on, as provided by Polyphony Digital in collaboration with Sony Interactive Entertainment. And our drivers shall be running fixed setups as determined by the GT Sport Group 3 balance of performance. So we are running the default balance of performance, and it's a fixed setup series. So as is, our drivers will be expected to pick the right car for the job, and well, they'll be staying with that car throughout the entirety of the series and looking to be the best of the best. Our drivers are only permitted to use the Racing Soft tyre for both qualifying and the feature race. And the idea behind that is, whilst we do not have a variation of tyre, the Racing Soft typically being the optimum tyre within the GT3 class, it is the case with a single tyre compound. It'll be about our drivers looking to save as much on that Racing Soft tyre, but also being able to extract the maximum out of it in both qualifying and in the race. Mechanical damage has also been set to heavy, meaning our drivers must return to the pits to repair damage, we should say, and that means they do not have any magical repair abilities as they go around on circuit. If they pick up engine damage, the thing that nobody wants, then it will be the case it's a long return to the pit lane. And even if they pick up aerodynamic or suspension damage, that can cause their lap times to drop from half a second all the way through to 2 seconds, so they will not want to pick up any damage. Traction control is prohibited, so TCS systems are not prohibited, and well, as you can see there in the feature race, the race start shall be a grid start with a full start check, and traction control being absent means that our drivers will need to master the art of launching the car without traction control and nailing it on the RPM banding. And as for who is going to advance to round 2, the semi-final in a week's time, will be the top 6 finishers from this pool. Subject to stewards' inquiries post-race, they will be the ones who make it to next week's semi-final into round 2, and they'll be one step closer to taking the crown. But with that's enough about the rules, regulations. Let's jump to our live pictures, and as we can see right now, our drivers making their way on around the circuit here, and we do have RTA Viper just making his way around and down towards turn at number 4, and also we do have GTV's Pierre Chatura making his way on around. But we do have a number of drivers right now in the pit lane and not going out on the circuit at this point in time. They do have approximately 10 minutes before we do go into that qualifying session. As we do look into the chat, we say good evening in the YouTube chat there to Sir Bottlejob, and sorry to hear that your device hates Twitch live streams for no reason. So here on YouTube, well, we're glad to have you on YouTube. Indeed, to all of you tuning in right now, do not be shy, feel free to say hi. We don't bite here on the broadcast, and do let us know how you're doing and having a good weekend. Well, I hope you're all having a good weekend. Do let us know if you are. We can also see there Viper making his way down in a Corvette, and as we see Stefan Vessels there in the YouTube chat from RTA saying, how are we doing? I'm doing absolutely fantastic, Stefan. A little bit tired, I must say, albeit grateful for the weekend, but still got some plentiful and fantastic racing action ahead, and I do hope we can see everything proceed swimmingly. What with Gran Turismo Sport, of course, having some of its issues with regards to custom lobbies, well, hopefully those issues will not materialise, as we do see P3R here making his way down out of turn at number 3 and heading up towards 4 here, the South African driver running in the Porsche 911 RSR 2017 GT3 machine and coming roaring on down. We also say hello to GTB's Mookie there in the YouTube chat, and bonjour to you as well, Mookie. That's about as much French as I do know, and also au revoir, but that's goodbye, and I'm not wanting to say goodbye to you just yet because you're only just arrived, and well, I believe you are here to see the racing. But other cars we are seeing as well, we are seeing KBR's Bridgens 62 bringing the Bmw M6 GT3, one of my favourite cars, I must admit, in terms of GT3 cars. It's a bit of a dated car now, with BMW replacing it as the GT World Challenge for this year with the BMW M4, but it is the case, the old M6 venerable with its twin-turbo V8 engine. We also do see that we do have Gilliburn here from KBR in the Toyota Supra Racing Concept machine, the 28 machine from Gazoo Racing, a very strong car, and perhaps the strongest GT3 car of all, as was confirmed by the FIA Manufacturers Series at the end of the 2021 World Tour. And then we can also see we've got Chicken Wing here bringing the Ferrari 458 Italia GT3. The Italian machine very fast over a single lap, but an absolute handful when that tyre wear comes on in. It may not be the race car, but it will be the qualifying pace car. We've also got RTA Safa here. There we can see in the Toyota Supra as well, bringing the Japanese machine. And we do have a variety of machines being brought, and of course Pierre Chatura, who we didn't talk about too much earlier, bringing the Corvette C7, a bit of American muscle there, much like RTA Viper from Greece. Now, the thing about the car choices for a good number of our drivers is going to be one of those situations whereby, with these guys making their way around right now, each car is going to bring its own unique item to the agenda. Now, what do I mean by that exactly? Well, you can imagine the Corvettes in particular are going to be very strong cars on the straight, got a lot of low band RPM, and as a result, and also low band RPM torque, I should say, finishing the sentence there. And what that does mean for these drivers is they'll be very fast when accelerating out of low speed corners, particularly coming out to turn number 3 at Remus, and also going up into turn number 4 and on exit. It will be the case they should be the fastest in the exit phase, but then as they start to head up towards top gear, that's where some of the other cars may equalise to an extent. And in particular, we're looking at the Toyota Supra that does have pretty much a little bit of everything. But watch out for the Corvette drivers, they should be very fast, and particularly quite fast off the line as well. And speaking of a driver who's going to be very fast off the line, it will be Chicken Wing here in the Ferrari. Now, we know the Ferrari, based on traction control launch, is the fastest of any GT3 car based on its balance of performance with the launch. It is the fastest by a huge margin, approximately at least a second in the run from 0 to 100. And, well, that could give the South African driver quite a bit of leverage in the run to turn 1, but if he qualifies towards the front. In terms of other cars, then, we also do see Gilliburn as he makes his way through. And it is the case the Toyota, as I said previously, really is the best of the bunch in terms of being a jack of all trades but master of none, but it does lean quite heavily to also being quite a bit of a master in a number of regards. It's a front engine rear wheel drive machine, but it does have the handling characteristics that would lean it more towards as if the engine was placed a little bit further back, such as the tune on the vehicle, and you can imagine it will be the case that our South African driver here, we're looking to extract the most out of the Toyota Supra as he makes his way down out to 9 and into turn 10 right now. And well, the downsides of the Supra, it can have a very, very lackluster launch. It has one of the nastiest turbo lags out of any car to be launched from the GT3 class, and if he does not nail it on the start, particularly with the absence of traction control, it could mean that we end up seeing a lot of wheel spin, or alternatively no wheel spin at all, as he just launches and stagnates off the line. And indeed, any of our Supra drivers will have to deal with that. Now, as for the Porsche, of course, in the hands of P3R84, now the thing, it's a case that our South African driver here has to think about with this machine in particular, is the fact that it's a bit of an oddity in terms of it's a handling car, but it does very well in the fuel stakes. Well, not very well in the fuel stakes, my apologies, I should say. It does very well in the tyre stakes, just refreshing my memory in terms of the balance of performance, and it's not too good on fuel. It's got quite an aggressive gearbox in terms of you normally have to constantly up and down shift between gears, where you normally have to pick a gear out of, say, first or second and third, because its first and second gear in particular are quite extended. First gear is absolutely massive in the Porsche, and is normally the case that you end up having to use one gear lower than you would in any other GT3 car, and of course being in a lower gear and having higher RPM at that point normally means you use a bit more fuel. But as I was saying, I got my words minced around earlier, it is the case that the Porsche very strong on tyre wear, and also it's a very strong handling car, and it will do very well in the middle sector in particular, where we do have quite that handling prevalence all the way into the final sector as well, going from turn 4 all the way through to turn number 8. And the Porsche, a very stable, very planted car as well. That rear wing on the back giving it a huge amount of rear end downforce and giving it the opportunity to be able to hold together. Now, as he makes his way down into turn at number 4 right now, we do look a little bit further around here to talk about some of our other cars. We do see the Bmw M6 here of Bridging 62. Now, the M6, a bit of an oddity. It is a power car, arguably front engine rear wheel drive, and normally the balance of performance in Gran Turismo Sport means that front engine rear wheel drive cars are power cars, either very strong on the straights but lack in the corners. Whereas mid engine rear wheel drive cars, they're more handling cars because the engine's towards the rear, so as a result they naturally prefer to go around corners because they have more rotation. The BMW M6, imagine if I said it's the handling car within the power group. So imagine you look at front engine rear wheel drive machines, it is the case the M6 actually lacks a little bit in terms of straight line speed, but what it makes up for in that regard is its ability to run very well through corners. This car very strong through medium speed apexes in particular, but the one downside about it is the fact that because of its turbo, it's got a very, very thirsty turbo. This car can be very aggressive on fuel consumption, and also because it's a power car but the power aspect has been taken away for a bit of handling, it means based on the balance of performance, actually this car really does hit a bit of a brick wall when it gets into 6th gear. The 6th gear has been extended quite somewhat, and as a result the BMW loses out. Now, are we expecting that to hurt the BMW here? Potentially the run from turn 1 through to 3 on the straight, then also the run, as we can see here, down from turn 3 to 4, that may hurt Bridgens quite a bit. But this car is going to be a little bit of a dark horse, I reckon. It is the case that it might have just the right balance across the car in terms of getting the performance out of it. I think Bridgens is going to have to put in a lot of work with his chosen machine. Now we can see Safa here, of course, in what is the Toyota. We talked about that a little bit earlier. And we've got Gael here in the Lexus RCF Emerald Racing machine, the 2017 official RCF GT3 machine. The Lexus, a bit of an all-rounder. This car doesn't really have a weakness as such. If I had to say what its weakness was, being a cockpit driver, is that it has very poor visibility from the cockpit position because it has got a very nasty driver's side pillar, which means that the driver, particularly sat on the left-hand side of the car, because of course this car being set to European standards, it means that you have trouble seeing apexes of corners, particularly medium to low speed apexes, where those apexes come up pretty fast. But it may be the case that Gael's running with regards to hood view, alternative third-person view, so as a result, and third-person view we're seeing here, so they may not be experiencing that. Otherwise, it's not really great at anything, the Lexus, but it's a good all-rounder and finds itself right in the middle. One little downside it does have, can be a little bit aggressive on its tyre consumption. It can just take a little bit of edge off the tyres early on, but not too much to worry about, and I think he'll be able to deal with it quite nicely. And we have NLR, that's Next Level Racing's Prelude Gen 04 here. We refer to him as Prelude from this point onwards, and he's bringing the Audi R8 LMS. It is the case he's bringing the venerable German machine, and well, this car, well, in terms of the balance of performance, it has gone through a huge variety of balance of performance changes over the years of Gran Turismo Sport. If anybody is a veteran of Gran Turismo Sport, you will remember all the way back to the early days where the Audi R8 was seen as the ultimate pace car, the one-lap pace car, and then there was a major change. Where is it now? It's in a bit of an odd place, this car. It's a handling car, as it seems to be the trend in mid-engine rear-wheel drive machines, and therefore it's very good around circuits which have got a number of direction changes in short and quick order. However, it can also be quite effective on the straights, albeit only up into 4th gear. So as it hits 5th and 6th, it starts to hit a bit of an accelerational barrier and top speed barrier. So you can imagine the Audi is actually a bit of an interesting pick here, because it will do quite well in the run out of what will be Sector 1 and into Sector 2. And as it goes into the final 2 sectors, so Sectors 2 and 3, this is where the Audi is going to come alive. But I think it may be up against it in the run through Sector 1, particularly on the run from Turn 1 to Turn 3. And you can imagine our Audi driver here of Prelude will be looking to try and use quite a bit of slipstream. In terms of tyre wear, the car is actually quite nice in terms of its tyre wear, can be quite stable until it really wears down those rear tyres. That's where it's going to feel the pinch, but nothing like the Ferrari. But it's not quite on the level of the Porsche either in terms of tyre conservation. So Prelude will have some work cut out for him. And fuel-wise, you can do quite a bit of fuel saving in the Audi. It is quite nice on its gearbox in terms of its setup, but we will have to wait and see how he, indeed all of our drivers, get on as they are just counting things down. We are now actually at 7 o'clock, and as a result, we should be going racing very shortly, but I think we are waiting on a couple more drivers to join. And I'm just checking in at the moment with the stewards to see if anything is being confirmed, and we are getting a call out with regards to some drivers who do need to make their way. I think a couple of them were saying they're just going to be right on time as we look into the chat, and we do say hello there to Sir Bottlejob. Well, we've already said hello to Sir Bottlejob, my apologies, but we do say hello to the fact that he's mentioned the Lexus there in big exclamation marks, and well, I think he's very happy to see a Lexus racing in this series. Indeed, Lexus being one of my personal favourite GT3 cars as well. And unfortunately, Mookie, as I do say, I'm not able to I do not know French, or I do not parlez-vous français, and as a result that may hold me back a little bit from understanding your messages, but at the same time it does look as though you're quite excited for us to go racing, as we are now just waiting. And there Stefan Vessel's saying about two-hour Bathurst races is a lot to get through. Indeed, for those who are wondering what's being referred to there, well, Stefan Vessel's competed in one of them earlier this week, but commentating for Next Gen Racing and the season finale of their GT3 series, while commentated over 2 races at Bathurst, 2-hour races on 2 back-to-back days. But still, it is the case we're now here at the weekend, and well, my voice is holding together, I must say, as we see Chicken Wing making his way into turn number 9. There was a little bit of hesitation, understeer, and then losing the car on the apex curve there, but riding it way too high. And I think everybody right now just waiting for that countdown to go racing, and we do have at this point in time 9 of our drivers. I think a couple more do need to ready up, and in fact, we've had a confirmation there from Pierre Chatura, who is our lobby host. That's P. Chatura in short, and you can see him here in the Corvette. Race will be starting at 5 minutes past. So qualifying will be starting in 3 minutes time, ladies and gentlemen. We are not too far away, but everybody right now just parked in the pits and getting ready to go. Now, what are going to be our expectations here? Well, I do think in terms of who's going to be potentially on pole, I think we could be looking at either one of our Toyota Supras, alternatively one of our Corvettes being on pole. For example, RTA, Racing Team Astra's Safa here, could be making his way to pole. But then in the race itself, it will depend on the launch, and over the course of the 27 laps, we do have a tyre wear multiplier of ×4 and a fuel consumption multiplier of ×4. That does mean we are expecting pit stops in the race. Now, we haven't been told that there's any mandatory requirement in terms of you've got to pit more than once, or you've got to pit at least once, or anything along those lines. So our drivers can run as many sets of racing softs as they want. They can take as much fuel as they want in the car. It is just a case that they need to get to the end and pick up the result. And remember, it is our top 6 finishers who will go through to round number 2, through to the semi-final. I do think, however, Chicken Wing the Ferrari could throw a bit of a surprise in qualifying. I think that Ferrari will have the legs, and what he will target, he will want to try and be roughly somewhere on the second row, if not the front row, because with the launch of that Ferrari, if he nails it despite the absence of traction control, that thing is going to fly off the line and will be a monster to deal with. And if he can break away early, that could give him an advantage. In terms of slipstream settings, we have it set to real, which means that the slipstream zone is at 0.75 seconds and closing off the back of the car in front. And that's where you get that feel of extra speed on the straights, because the car in front of you is punching a hole in the air for you. Or in the GT Sport interpretation, it can feel almost as though you're going into hyperdrive when you're tucked in behind another car. But of course, having a little bit of a joke there, but at the same time, the slipstream very powerful in Gran Turismo Sport, even on the real setting when a driver gets into it. But it also comes with some downsides, and that is the dirty air through the corners leads to a huge amount of front end understeer, because of course the cars will lose that front end downforce, and that can hurt them quite significantly. So that is what our drivers will have to balance out over the course of tonight, and we are only moments away. And we do have 10 drivers taken to the lobby. We are waiting to see if we've got any others on their way, but I think it is the case that right now we are pretty much ready to go, as we do do see we've also got Pipo there. Pipo Ollie joining, and well, he is going to be running in the Chevrolet Corvette as well, as we see the GTB driver there. Indeed, the Corvette, a very strong choice, and I think it could do very well for Pipo, as the race is going to be starting in a minute, ladies and gentlemen. Do give me your bets. Place what your expectations are going to be into the chat. Who do you think is going to be on pole, or at least what type of car will be on pole? Can we expect it could be the Toyota Supra? Could it alternatively be the Porsche 911? As Sir Bottlejob was saying earlier in the YouTube chat, a little bit of a dark horse. Indeed, the Porsche really has been a dark horse, and a regular in the top 3 in the FIA Manufacturers Series of Gran Turismo Sport, as he makes his way up into the corner. And as he comes into the right-hander right now, well, it is the case, return 3 and looking very firm there. Or could it alternatively be Chicken Wing here in the Ferrari? Could he throw us a dummy here with regards to the fact that the car goes very well in that qualifying trim? Or could we see a Bridgens potentially pull off a surprise in the Bmw M6? As we are now just waiting, that countdown is continuing, and well, we will be qualifying very shortly, as we do see it is time to go. It is 5 past the hour, and any moment we will get that countdown, and it will be time for the 10-minute qualifying session. As we just wait now, we will have 10 of our 13 drivers taking part. By the looks of things, 3 of them not able to make it on time. We have given them an extra 5 minutes, but the show must go on, and now we are just waiting for that countdown to appear any moment now. I think they're Pierre Chateau saying, let's go racers. I think he's eager to go. And there's the countdown, ladies and gentlemen. It is time for qualifying. Who's going to be on pole? Let's find out. So all of our drivers will now be looking to get out of the pits as soon as possible here in this qualifying session, with only 10 minutes up for grabs. I would say that given the tyre wear multiplier is times 4, our drivers will be feeling the pinch in this qualifying session, and indeed they will only be getting in approximately 3 to 4 laps, if that, 3 to 4 flying laps, and a banker lap is going to be ever so critical here. A good banker will set a driver up very well as everybody tries to get out. Now, can we expect potentially drivers to try and tuck into the slipstream with one another in this qualifying session? It is a good possibility. We have seen that in the past, of course, in racing here in other series, including the FIA Manufacturers Series. A good number of slipstreamers, and a lot of the drivers here will be veterans of using the slipstream for the purposes of qualifying. But the big thing straight away, as you can see, everybody really charging on around right now, with Chicken Wing there falling back behind Safa. I think looking to get himself a toe on the rundown towards turn number 4. Now, in terms of the ruling, there have been no statements with regards to drivers not being permitted to use slipstream in qualifying. It is the case they are permitted to if they set it up well, but at the same time, of course, if they do end up obstructing another driver or causing an incident with another driver, then we could potentially be seeing some complaints going to our stewards. But right now, it is the case, everybody making their way on around. It's Chatura who's going to be our lead driver, I think, as he makes his way through turn number 8 and heads up towards 9. And we will be riding on board with the Belgian as he makes his way into turn number 9, into Jockenrink corner, and then he'll be coming down into the final corner to take us for our qualifying lap. So as we ride on board here with Chatura, he takes us around, and let's give you a tour of the Red Bull Ring circuit from the perspective of the Corvette CISO and GT3 machine. So making his way across that timeline then to go on to his opening flying lap of the session. Heading up towards turn number 1 and looking for his brake mark here at the 100 metre board, and coming down to third gear, rolling the car in before stabbing back on the throttle, keeping 2 wheels on the curb there, which means that he's within track limits, and that's a long charge up towards turn number 3. Flat on the throttle all the way up here in 5th gear. It's very likely some cars will have to go up into 6th, others will not. In this case, the Corvette does not, as he looks to brake uphill here into the right-hander at turn number 3, into Remus, coming all the way down to 1st gear from that 100 metre braking board, and now charging out the corner, using the full extension of the circuit as he exits, and that's a long run down towards turn number 4. A similar style of run here, but the difference is now we go from an uphill braking zone to a downhill braking zone. He'll be braking at approximately 110 metres and coming down the gearbox into 2nd gear, getting it nice and high on that apex curve and putting the throttle down. And we can see there just a little bit of a moment there on the exit as he comes through 5 and heading up in towards turn number 6. Braking at the 50 metre board, trail braking in here, coming down to 3rd gear, looking to get a nice late apex, get it high on the apex curve to pull the car around, and then 4th gear before snapping down from 5th to 3rd. In fact, the gear in there in the Corvette, and having to use 2 downshifts to settle the car. And as he makes his way out of 7 and 8, now it's a long run over the ridge and up towards turn number 9. Coming up towards Jochen Ring corner here, the downhill right-hander off camber. You'll see he brakes at the 50-metre board down to 4th gear, balancing the throttle and getting back on the throttle as he makes his way into turn number 10, down to 3rd gear, and now accelerating out of the corner. And this will be our opening lap for the session. It will be the standard that everyone else is judged to, and it'll be Shatura who sets the lap of a 28.1. Not a bad opener there, but can anybody else do better is the big question as we see Bridgens coming across the line. And what can the South African driver do? He goes at 29.1, a whole second behind. There's Prelude Gen 04 who comes across there, and I do believe it goes. Well, he doesn't set a lap. In fact, that lap was invalidated by the looks of things as we've got more laps coming on in, but we can see it is the case that RTA's Safa sets the fastest provisional lap now of a 27.837. My goodness, Safa with an absolute monster of a lap there. The first of our laps to be in the 27s. 3 tenths clear of Pierre Shatura as he makes his way up towards turn number 3. Now, meanwhile, we can see RTA's Viper there. Well, he's making his way on up, of course, in the Corvette himself. And as he does, it does look as though our Toyotas so far doing quite well. At least Safa in the Toyotas doing well. But meanwhile, looking a bit further down, we do have Pipo Ollie here in the Corvette P4. And then a bit further down in P5, the best part of half a second, we have the Porsche there of P3R as he makes his way P3R 84 as he comes down into the braking zone for turn number 4. Now again, remember, some of the cars are going to be stronger in terms of that qualifying trim versus how they're going to be in that race trim. And qualifying is only going to be one side of the story here. Remember, at the end of the day, it's all about that race result. But I think right now, what P3R is going to be targeting is the 3rd row. If he can get himself onto that 3rd row come the end of this qualifying session, he'll have done very well and he'll have placed himself well in the midfield. If he can get a good start, he could find himself up in the top 3 come the end of lap number 1. As we see more lap times coming in, Shatura improves to a 28.0 off camera. But we look a little bit further down, we can see Chicken Wing here in the Ferrari. His opening lap nowhere near the standard expected, a 31.886. Might say the standard in terms of the target times, and I think that was more of a sighting lap than anything else. He comes down into the final corner, a little bit unsettled there on the exit curve at turn number 9 and sideways on the exit at 10. I think it's a case of Chicken Wing here not able to get those tyres up to temperature as much as he wants, and that lap being another disastrous lap. I think Chicken Wing really struggling at this point in the qualifying session, but there's still some time to go. We're halfway into the session, but you can see they're getting a little bit wrong, and RTA Viper coming on through there, muscling his way on through with the American muscle as he makes his way up towards turn number 3. But Chicken Wing tucking in behind here and using the slipstream to his advantage. Will he be able to stay with him as they make the way up into the braking zone? Well, the two of them squabbling here as they make the way in, but Chicken Wing backing off in the end. Meanwhile, we can see the Lexus of Gale 111 just not able to really stay on the pace of the oval leaders. But to be fair, I say that it's only 1.3 seconds from P8 to P1 right now, and a 28.885. Well, it's not a bad lap by any means. That shows you how high the competition is in this pool. As meanwhile, I should point out to you right now, ladies and gentlemen, that it is our Audi driver of Next Level Racing's Prelude Gen 04 who is the fastest man of anyone and running behind the BMW M4 there of Bridgens, who's giving him a little bit of a slipstream time and moves out the way in the run up towards turn number 9. And well, this could be an absolutely unassailable lap for the Frenchman as he makes his way through the right hander of 9, coming down into 10, a little bit sideways there on the exit curve, just getting unsettled by the raises in the exit curve. And as he makes his way across the line, surely this is going to be an improvement. It's a 27.1. That is 7 tenths faster than anybody else out there. And Prelude Gen, my goodness, what a qualifying lap. That is sensational, and I do think it's going to be a tall order for even the likes of RTA Safa to be able to come back. He's on a personal best right now, Safa, as we see Gale improves to a 28.8 flat, but what can Safa do to counter? Well, it's nowhere near enough. That's a 27.693, and right now he is 5.5 tenths off of Prelude Gen, but Prelude Gen really in the Audi, using a bit of toe off of what was Bridgens, which I think has worked out very nicely, but at the same time that Audi has absolutely flown. And as we see Gillibrand here making his way up towards turn number 3, and the Supra driver, well, it is the case. It is Audi, then 2 Supras, and then it's a Corvette in the top 4. It is the case the Supra's looking good here, as we do see Gillibrand making his way through the right-hander of 3, going very, very high on the apex of turn number 3, and as a result, unsettling the car very nastily. Only 2.5 minutes this qualifying session remaining, but it is looking as though the full effect of the Audi on pole are going to be realised very soon, as we do see KBR's driver making his way through the corner here and heading on around into what is the midfield as he comes charging on down. as he makes his way around this time. It is the case that as he continues to press around the circuit, looking good so far, but will he be able to find a way to improve this lap? It's not been an improvement in Sector 1. What about Sector 2? We see Chicken Wing there parked up on the grass. He's had something go very, very wrong. And, well, we are continuing to wait to see these lap times come on in as we see Guile here making his way with Safa just behind. I think these two might be doing a bit of teamwork for Team RTA in terms of giving the South African driver a bit of a run on the straights here, although the Super quite strong on the straights as is. As the RTA Viper improves to a 28.0, but how about these two today improve? Well, it's the case that Lexus does not, and neither does Safa, and we now only have 2 minutes to go. As they make their way around the corners right now, Chicken Wing in P10. Well, this is not going his way at all. He is 3 seconds off of P9. And I think it's the case the Ferrari driver here, if he's leaving it all to last moment, well, it is being left very, very late in the day. And this is not looking good for the South African driver as he makes his way up towards turn number 1. But we will wait and see as the Ferrari driver makes his way into the corner here. And I do think it is the case that Chicken Wing really struggling for overall pace. And perhaps he's got something lined up in the race as we follow him in the run up towards turn number 3, but it is not looking comfortable right now, and indeed this is looking to be the qualifying session of nightmares as he comes up towards the end of Sector 1, and he's improved by 2 tenths already, and he's going a bit hot on the brakes, so you can see the carbon ceramic disc is really lighting up as he makes his way down towards 4. We ride on board with Chicken Wing as he takes us around for the rest of his lap. As he comes running down in towards turn at number 4 and coming into that right hander, coming down the gearbox very shortly from 5th gear all the way down to 2nd, just going a little bit deep under brake into the rear, stepping out there from the series of downshifts, and Chicken Wing just not happy with the car. It does seem as though the Ferrari and the driver are just not compatible at this point, but we will wait and see as he comes through turn number 6, and as he comes up through, just unsettled each and every time, and it's not a nice place to be in. That Ferrari, really a difficult car to drive, in race trim, but here in quali trim it's also proving to be a handful as he makes his way onto the ridge here for the run to turn number 9 into a Jochen Rindt corner. As he comes on in, will he be able to find a way to improve? We will wait and see, but it's not looking happy as he comes through the downhill right-hander and, well, just unsettled and not able to use the full width of the circuit. He comes now to complete his final qualifying lap. We will get one more here, but so it's his penultimate qualifying lap, but it's not an improvement. But meanwhile, Pirelli Gen has parked up. He's out of the way. His qualifying session is over. He thinks he's done enough. What about Safa, who's on his final lap? Well, he's still 5.5 tenths down. I think Pirelli Gen has got the mission done, as meanwhile Pierre Chatura will be looking to try and dethrone Safa from P2 as he makes his way towards the end of his current lap. He'll be the next driver to come across that timing line. And as he makes his way up into the braking zone for Rindt corner, down to 4th gear, rolling the car on apex, and now coming down into the final corner, looking good, the Belgian. And as he makes his way on exit, well, what's it going to be from Chatur? He comes across the line, he pulls it all the way over. It is not an improvement, a whole second down on his previous best. But we can see Viper, meanwhile, still making his way on around. We do have, I believe, making his way towards the end of a lap right now. That is Pivo Ollie from GTE. He comes across the line here, and he does improve to P6, but will there be a counter from the Porsche driver of P3R84? He does not improve, so he has been dethroned from P6. And meanwhile, we can see there, I believe that is Safa coming across the line. What's it going to be from Safa? It's not an improvement. And what about from Guile? It is not an improvement either. Well, I do think with that, we do have, I think that's, well, that is Pirelli coming across the line here, who is going to take pole position for Paul Four's race as they make their way around to complete their qualifying session. It is Prelude who will be taking pole, and in the end, well, it was by a huge margin. I think it was aided somewhat with some tow off of KBR's Bridge in 62, but everybody right now parked up, and that is qualifying complete, ladies and gentlemen, as Chicken Wing does improve to a 31.695, but quite a way off the pace is Chicken Wing from the rest of the field by the best part of 3 seconds almost. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, the clock now comes on down, and it is time for us very shortly to move to the race with Enlar's Prelude Gen taking pole position. So as we pan down to the grid here for the standing start, it's Prelude Gen on the right, on the left RTA Safa. Behind Pierre Chatur, followed by Viper, then Gillo Brun and Pipo Ollie on row number 3. Per 84 on row at number 4 with Bridgens alongside him, and then Guile and Chicken Wing making up our final row as we get ready to go racing for 27 laps here of the Red Bull Ring. Let's lights out and away we go for the race as all of our drivers get a good start there, particularly Prelude Jen getting a monstrous start. But look at this, the Ferrari that we talked about there, of which Chicken Wing gaining multiple places at the start, already up to P6 from P10, and absolutely flying off the line is the South African as they make their way up towards turn number 3 for the first time of asking. But just a little bit ahead, we can see Shatura here with Pipo Ollie just behind, and RTA Viper side by side as they make their way up into the heavy braking zone. Uphill they brake and into the right hand of Remus, and as they come on in, we can see a little bit further back here, Gillibrand already coming on in as we do. I think there was some contact there between Chicken Wing, who gets it very wrong and makes contact with Per 84 as they make their way out of turn number 3. Now, is there damage on both drivers' cars? It doesn't look as though there's damage on either of them as far as I can see. It looks as though both of them made it through with just some scratches to the paintwork, but that could have been near fatal. I think Bridgens there got it a bit wrong under braking and tapped the rear from Chicken Wing, and as a result, that's why he's backed off to P10. But right now, after a great start from the Ferrari driver, it's gone a bit downhill. But meanwhile, looking up front, you can see that Prelude Jen, after getting that monster start, has now been reeled in quite rapidly from Safa here. And it's the case the Audi driver will be giving it his all over the course of the 27 laps in order to try and break away, or at least hold on to that lead. But I think if he can't break away after 1 or 2 laps, he may go into a little bit of a fuel saving mode just to coast him along, and then look to tuck in behind Safa should Safa try and go for the move. But as they come down out of the final 2 corners here to complete the opening lap to come across that timeline, it is next level races Prelude Jen 04 currently leading by half a second ahead of RTA Safa in P2, and then it's GTB's Pierre Chatura ahead of his teammate Pipo Ollie P3, P4, followed by RTA's Viper P5. Then we've got Gillibrand in P6, followed by Gull 111 in P7, and then we've got Per 84 in P8, followed by Chicken Wing in P9, and he's got Bridgens looking for the move in P10, but Bridgens not able to find a move this time around as they make the way up towards turn number 3 once again. We meanwhile look back up towards our leaders here, and we can see Safa going for the move versus Prelude Jen. Jen not offering a defence here as such, I think just looking to tuck on in, as meanwhile a bit further back we can see we've got 3 wide almost there, and it's RTA Viper going for the move on Pipo Ollie as they exit. However, Pipo being afforded the slipstream by his teammate Pierre Chatur, and as a result now Viper has to be very conscious of the fact he's got a Toyota Supra in the hands of KBR's Gillibrand, who's trying to catch up behind as they make their way down towards turn number 4. They come into that braking zone here once more, and as they roll the cars on down into that trail braking zone into turn number 4, everybody's starting to form into a bit of a formation, but you can see how Prelude Jen are holding on to that lead right now versus Safa. In fact, going for the return move into turn number 4. We didn't quite see it on camera, but the Frenchman staying firm and making it very clear he's here to win. He's not here just to come second behind the Toyota as they make the way through 7, 8 and up towards 9 and 10. Now looking a bit further back, it is the case that Chicken Wing battling here for P9 versus Bridgens, goes very deep out the corner and onto that gravel, and Chicken Wing I think with that will be cursing his stars after what was a fantastic start. And let's just take a look back at that launch. Here to give you an idea, riding on board with Chicken Wing, watch this, and we're talking about the Ferrari's launch control, making places immediately, gains 1 and then comes through the middle of 2 here, literally squeezes, and then also goes to the move on Gillibrand. In fact, up what was 4 places and then losing out as he exited out of the corner. It all started to go downhill from there, but a fantastic and daring launch from the South African driver who's now in P10. But we look back to our live pictures right now. Once again, we look to our leaders who are on lap number 3. They come up into turn number 3, and as they make the way, you can see Safa just tucking in behind this time. I think recognising, you know what, the Audi driver in front of me is not going to just let me run off into the distance with this one. I need to be a little bit more savvy with how I approach this. In return, just behind, we can see RTA Viper here just rolling on behind Pipo Ollie in identical machinery. And as the two of them make their way into the braking zone for turn number 4, I do wonder if we're already starting to enter a little bit of a tyre conservation and fuel saving phase here in this race. Given the fact the tyre wear of ×4, we will be expecting also the fuel consumption of ×4. You can see there already in the onboard telemetry in the bottom left hand corner of your screen from RTA Viper, we're not even a complete 3 laps into this race, and we've almost seen a quarter of the fuel tank drain. So approximately it will be a quarter of a fuel tank every 4 laps. So we are expecting at least 1 pit stop for fuel from most of our drivers here. But of course, if drivers can do a bit of fuel saving to make that pit stop a bit shorter and gain some overall race time, then they will do so, you can imagine. And right now I think that is the big question between Safa and Prelude Jen at the front of the field. Will Prelude Jen be made to use more fuel by Safa just tucking in behind and fuel saving to his utmost here? But I think Prelude Jen as well will be conscious of the fact the rear tyres on that Audi will fade away quite rapidly as they make their way onto lap number 4. Now, as they come up into the braking zone for turn number 1, can we see anything further back? Well, I think it is the case that right now Gillibrand dropping there what is Guile, who's picked up a 2.5 second penalty for track limits and then hits the sausage curve on the exit there at turn number 1. And now he does have to lift off and burn this penalty. Our drivers were informed that coming out of turn 1 in the run-up towards turn number 3, they have to burn their penalties in that stretch, and that is going to hurt the Frenchman massively after what was looking quite a good start. But that has promoted the Porsche driver of P3R 84, or Per 84 as also referred to him, as he makes his way out of turn number 3 and up towards 4. And we've already got a retirement of Chicken Wing 66, which is very unfortunate. We've gone from 10 drivers to 9. I think Chicken Wing with some technical issues with the car. The Ferrari just not looking happy all evening, and it is the case that we have lost the Ferrari driver, which is very unfortunate. But now we see Bridgens bringing up the rear of the field here of our running drivers, and the M6 driver looking to try and close up to Guile in short order. As we look from them back up towards the leaders right now, particularly P3 man GTB Pierre Chateau right now, as he makes his way through turn number 7 and into 8. It is the case the Belgian driver here holding firm as he gives that pursuit of Safa, but to be fair at the same time 1.1 seconds back. I think just enjoying running in this distant run as he comes through turn number 9. And what I mean by that is he'll be glad that he's only 1 to 1.1 seconds off of the leaders, and he'll not be pushing too hard here in order to avoid picking up any track limits penalties, and also at the same time save a bit of the car. But he picks up a half-second penalty for a run wide there out of the final corner. Those track limits absolutely brutal out of the final corner here at the Red Bull Ring, and as a result he will feel the pinch of that penalty, because a half-second penalty here when it's burned is the equivalent to about a 1 second penalty. And speaking of a 1 second penalty, it's RTA Safa who's got a 1 second penalty for track limits at turn 1, and this is what Prelogem will have been hoping for, that the drivers behind will have pushed too hard, and as a result, well, we can see there with Pierre Chateau having to let his teammate Pipo Olli take the inside into turn number 3. It is the case now Prelogem will try and break away with the lead of this race and run it off into the distance, but can he do it? That's the big question as they make the way down towards turn number 4. As they come rip-roaring down this time, it is the case. You can see our top 5 are only separated by 3 seconds from start to finish, and meanwhile behind him in P6 with Gillibrand here with a further 2 seconds back, and the Toyota driver I think just enjoying running the race right now with the Hornet on the side of the car, and he'll be looking to try and deliver his sting a bit later on. But I think at this point in time the drivers outside the top 5 focusing more on just running conservative races and protecting the car rather than pushing it too hard, as the Per 84 making his way in towards turn number 7 here, and the Porsche driver will be looking to make those tyres go a bit longer compared to everyone else. The Porsche being quite kind to its tyres. The Racing Soft compound, of course, being quite a grippy tyre, but no means durable, and that is going to be hurting a number of our drivers. But then again, we can see Prelogem right now doing a very nice job of protecting the tyres on the car, as we're not quite at quarter distance yet, and he's just under, well, a quarter of a fuel tank used. Sorry, just over a quarter of a fuel tank used, and as he drifts his way there into turn number 1, it is the case Prelogem really starting to work. But you can see on that telemetry data in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen, that rear left tyre just losing a little bit of its life already, starting to open a bit more compared to the other 3 tyres. And it is the rear left tyre, particularly here at the Red Bull Ring, that has to do a lot of work, given the fact that this circuit is a clockwise circuit, so there are more right-hand turns than left-hand turns, which means the left-hand tyres have to do more of the grip work. And also on top of that, given the fact it's mid-engine rear-wheel drive, it means all the weight's towards the rear of the car, which means under braking, alternatively getting on the power, the weight distribution hurts the rear tyres a bit more, and getting on the power, the rear tyres also feel that extra wear by default. And that means for Prelogem right now, well, he'll need to extract as much out of those tyres whilst he can, because when they start to go, it will be a pit stop soon, or you can imagine that Safa, Pipo Olli, Pierre Chateau and Viper will all be there to capitalise versus the NLR driver, as it is the case that RTA are currently sandwiched in the GTB army as they make their way out of turn number 6 and in towards 7. And as they roll on through and come around and head in towards turn number 8, we can see that it is the case they are continuing to drop 6th place man Gillibrand just a little bit, approximately 2 tenths of a second a lap here, and that is a sign of how the pacing is going in this race right now. But since the start we haven't had too much kick-off, although I say that it does look as though Bridgens here has managed to find his way up to P8, and I think Per has had a bit of an off. Now what has happened to the Porsche driver? Well, wherever it's happened much earlier in the lap, because he was behind them by the time they got to turn number 6. We can't quite tell you what exactly has happened, but what I can tell you right now is the fact that our P7 driver here, the Lexus driver of Guile 111, is under pressure from Bridgens as they make the way into turn number 1 once again. Now, as they roll on through the corner this time, well, the big challenge now will be with respect to whether Bridgens is able to get the run up towards turn number 3, or whether he just tucks in behind. The BMW, of course, a bit of a straight line speed deficit versus a Lexus, but in the tow, he's looking for it. He doesn't commit to it, however, getting closer and closer each and every straight. And as they make the way, you can see Per 84 behind also there, and it's the case that Bridgens has actually dropped it to some extent coming out of the corner as we now look to our P8 driver here under pressure from the Porsche behind, and we can see Per 84 lurking on the inside here. He's going to try and go for it into turn 4. He'll be given the space, but he turns in a little bit there and does shut the door. And I think Per 84 would argue that he was fully alongside there. I think that might be one that the stewards will be taking a look at after the race. But Per 84 right now, I think will be feeling a bit of frustration with that. He goes for it once again here, tries to get on in. But the problem with turn number 6 is whilst it looks as though it's a great overtaking spot, the fact that the corner goes downhill into a tapered apex means that if you are on that inside, you have to be fully alongside. Otherwise, you can't make the move because you'll just have the front end of your car completely cut off by the driver on the outside who needs to take the line through the corner. And as they make the way in towards turn number 9 right now, it is the case that the 3 of them do stagnate a little bit here, and I think the Porsche driver will be frustrated and maybe thinking about a potential undercut strategy. But meanwhile, back up front, it is the case that Prelude Gen has had something go very, very wrong, because now it is Safa who's got into the lead here, and it's We Go Racing once again for our top 5 as they all make the way, and we have a new leader in this race, and that is RTA Safa, the South African driver, who takes the lead and makes his way up into turn number 3. Now, as they make the way up into the heavy braking zone here for the 8th time of asking, you can see how Prelude Gen really getting on the offensive, and I think the Audi driver here from France is going to be looking for a move very soon. He does not like the fact that he's dropped out the lead. It's definitely visible in the body language of the car, but you can see the difference here, and the fact that as now they've run down, I think he's also going to be doing a little bit of fuel saving here because he won't be able to go for the move. And behind, Pipo, Ollie and Pierre Chateau and also Viper, all 3 of them looking for that opportunity to get themselves ahead and become contenders versus Safa as they make their way up into 6. Now, what do you do in this situation is the big question in terms of, do you look for a move, do you tuck on in? Well, if you're Prelude Gen, you definitely look for a move here because I think he wants to get a move on. But I think, meanwhile, Safa may be keen to take some of the pace out of the race for now and, in fact, back the Audi driver into the 2 Corvettes behind, in fact, the 3 Corvettes behind. And the simple reason for that is he may feel that his main rival here is Prelude Gen for the win. Now, remember, our drivers only need to finish in the top 6 to make it into the next round. Of course, where they finish in this race may affect their placement in terms of which of the semi-final rooms they go to, but it is the case that right now all of these drivers soldiering on here, and will be very interesting to see how they navigate this as we make our way on to lap number 9 and we come towards the end of the first third of the race come the end of this lap. And as they make the way through turn number 1 this time out, it definitely looks as though Safa now has a little bit of an advantage, and I think Prelude Gen has decided to turn the wick down in order just to run behind. But you can see here in the run up towards turn number 3, Peabody looking for the move, and as they make the way into the braking zone, he goes for it. Peabody's going to go all the way to the inside there under braking, and he almost gets it versus Safa, and that has disturbed the Toyota driver somewhat as they make the way down towards turn number 4. Prelude Gen just tucks in behind here, but Pipo Oli now seizing the opportunity to go on the offensive, and I think he feels as though it is his time. As you can see coming down to the braking zone, Pierre Chateau has to back out. He's not able to find the move, but it is the case that he's looking for it versus Prelude Gen. And now as they all return to line astern, it is the case that the top 5 here really starting to open up. And to be fair, I think the reason why this is happening as well is the fact that for all these drivers right now, as they make the way on through, they're looking at those potential opportunities to position themselves well for the pit stop. Because if we take a look at the telemetry data, Pierre Chateau at this point, you can see the fuel tank is now under half here. We know the Corvette can be very thirsty on the fuel if it's not short shifted, but then again, it is naturally inclined for short shifting given the way its torque curve is and its power delivery is in the RPM banding, where you do not want to send this car beyond approximately 2/3 of its available RPM. But as we see Pierre Chateau here making his way down towards lap number 10 right now, it is the case those left side tyres are looking quite exposed, and that fuel tank even more so, and Prelude Gen in particular on better tyre wear compared to the Corvette driver, and its fuel a little bit better as well. But what about our race leader? It's the question. Well, Safa right now has used a lot of fuel to be where he is, and I think Safa is feeling the pinch of the fuel situation. His tyres, to be fair, are in good state as they make the way up into turn number 3, but indeed our top 5 really they all position themselves well, and I think it's the drivers who can spend a little bit less time in the pits with regards to taking fuel on who are going to gain in that pit stop, because remember, it is the case that with regards to the fuel going in the car, it is approximately somewhere in the region of about 4 litres a second in this lobby, and as a result, every litre that doesn't need to go into the car will be invaluable as our drivers make their way out to turn number 4 and head through 5 and up into 6. Now as they come up into turn number 6 here, well, RTA Viper at the back of this pack, and he goes a bit deep under brake and then to turn number 6, and I think it is the case that Viper right now will be starting to feel as though it's a bit of tightness on those front tyres, some understeer kicking in, and he'll need to bring the car back together as they make the one through. But he's almost lost the toe, he's just still within there. A bit further back, we've got Gillibrand here, who in P6 is falling off the leaders. We've got Gal in P7, then we've got Per84 in P8, and then we've got Bridgens in P9 as they make their way through. Nobody peeling into the pits as I look outside my commentary box window, but right now as our leaders go on to their 11th lap, we're now into the third of the race. We can see P. Riley there with a penalty for track limits to the final corner, a 1-second penalty, and that penalty is going to really hurt him. That may actually drop him out of the running here. As we can see, it's the case that Brilliant Jen gets all over the back of the Corvette driver and loses out massively in the run, and I think it is the case now that Safa will try and break away. He'll have an attempt at this, as we can see the move for P2 here from Shatura, who tries to go through Brilliant Jen up the inside into turn number 3. They give one over just about enough space, and Shatura gets the move done, but now will Preligen come back at him as they make the way down towards turn number 4. As they come in towards that braking zone, you can definitely see the South African of Safa up ahead, breaking away. He's 1 second clear, and these drivers do not look for the return move versus one another. And Pipa Oli at the back of this pack now, and just outside the slipstream range of RTA Viper, and I think he'll be trying to push to get back into it in short order as they make the way into 6. But as they come through the left-hander this time and come downhill, I think also now that tyre wear does become a major concern. I think most of our drivers will be trying to go for a one-stop here as we do look to those fuel tanks once again, and will, based on that fuel remaining right now, it is likely to be a one-stop with our drivers coming in around lap 13 through to 15 to put in a new tank of fuel and also put on a fresh pair of boots. But as they make their way around this time, nobody going early here, we wouldn't expect it to be for an undercut about 3 to 4 laps ahead of the ideal situation would not be advisable. And as they come out and on to lap number 12, it is the case of right now Pretty Jen having to hunt down Pierre Shatura, and Safa just breaking away increment by increment here as he goes into turn number 1. In terms of the fastest lap of this race, it's been delivered by Pierre Shatura in P2 right now, a 1:28.535. In terms of the pace that these drivers are showing at this time, they're looking at the low 29s, but City Safa there, 29.0, and then we can see Shatura by comparison. That last lap was a bit of battling, but he was able to pick up a 28.8, so it is the case he's not too far off our leader, even in that clear air. In fact, I do think Shatura is showing quite a bit of delivery of pace. Now he's got some clear air to run in. As they make their way down towards 4, the problem, of course, for Shatura at this point is he can't afford to let Safa get away, but at the same time he can't afford to use too much fuel, because the more fuel he uses in the pursuit of the Toyota in front of him, as he makes his way into the slipstream zone, he's actually been successful in getting back into the tow, coming out of turn 4 and into 5, so I'm going to mind my manners and mark my words. I was going to say that Shatura, if he had to push too hard to get into that slipstream, he'll cost himself a lot of fuel and means he'll potentially lose position in the pit stops as they make their way on through. But right now it does look as though Shatura really coming back alive here, as we do see our top 3 starting to make a little bit of a breakaway from P4, P5. RTA's Viper just ahead of GTB's Pipo Ollie as they make the way up into turn number 9. Now as they come through the right hander this time around, nobody peeling in once again. They all stay up, but you can definitely tell that Viper starting to struggle a little bit with the Corvette C7 in terms of its situation in that tyre consumption, also that fuel, and I think it is the case right now that for Viper as he makes his way up into turn number 1 this time around. Well, I think Viper will be just feeling a little bit of ache there as he goes a bit deep into turn number 1 on the exit, and Peabody is going to be capitalising very soon. He'll be getting very close in the run up towards turn number 3, and you can see Viper was going defensive initially, peels back onto the racing line, and as they make the way up, I think the GTV driver is going to go over the move. It's going to be quite late on the brakes, not quite able to go for it here. In fact, he has to tuck back in and wait for an opportunity, but Viper there with a little bit of snap oversteer on the exit as he's trying to deliver the power. It is the case that these two are going to be inching closer here, and as they make their way down to the braking zone this time, Viper holds to centre right, centre left in the circuit, and as they make their way down, no change, and Pipa Oli waits once again. as they make their way out of the corner and head on through in towards turn number 6. We can see a bit further back here that Guile being closed up very gradually by Per 84, and of course they will be both trying to close up to the South African KVRs at Gillibrand, who's in P6 right now, and last of the positions that goes through to what is the semi-final in a week's time. So as these drivers make their way on down and out the right-hander, we will have to wait and see how that plays on out as they come into left-hander here for turn number 6, and Guile looking to hold on as they make the way on down. But as they do, we do look a little bit further up the road once again to our P6 driver here of Gillibrand as he comes down into turn number 9. Will he be peeling into the pits? No, he stays out once again. We're now entering the halfway phase of the race, given the fact that, or the halfway point I should say, given the fact we're now onto lap number 14 for our leaders, and you can see that Safa is breaking away every so often here, just finding a bit of lap time where it may not be available to Shatura or Prelude Gem behind, and as they make the way up towards turn number 3, I do think it's the case that Safa right now really trying to pull out all the stops in order to get this done. He will want an advantage of at least a second. But meanwhile behind we see it's People who's gone very deep, and Viper comes back here. It's going to be a drag race down towards turn number 4, but People tucks back into the slipstream immediately here. No, he's overextended, and as they make the way down into the braking zone for turn number 4, he's going to take another look as a GTB driver, and Viper just stays on his race line and confidence that his braking is going to be later. But let's take a look back at how that happened. But it was all in the drag race out to turn 1, and Will Peabody here getting the slipstream that he needed and closing very rapidly. But then as they came up towards the braking zone here with a huge overspeed of about 5 to 6 mile an hour into the braking zone, he went, I think he just went a bit too late and overextended the apex on the tighter line, and that's where we saw the action kick off from. But meanwhile, as our drivers coming through, will we see any of them peel into the pits? So Safa now having to back off there, looking as though he's had a bit of a poor run in the second half of the lap, and he peels on in, so does Shatura, but look who stays out. Now this is very revealing. Prelude Gen stays on out, RTA Viper comes in, and Peepo Ollie stays out as well. So we're going to see a 50-50 split in our top 5, as close as possible to a 50-50 or a 60-40 as they make their way onto lap number 15, or at least 2 of them do, whereas the rest of the field seems to be peeling into the pit lane here. So it is the case that our 2 leaders, Prelude Gen back into the lead, they are going 1 lap longer here in the hope that in doing so they give themselves the overcut, or what's just used to be known as staying out longer, as they make the way. And they'll have fresher tyres come the end of the race, but will it cost them time on this lap? Well, right now the fuel's going into our drivers' cars for those who are in the pit, and I can tell you that in terms of fuel, it was Pierre Shatura who had a little bit more fuel than Per 84 as he leaves the pit lane here. But look who's got out in front of him. That is Safa, who's made his way on out, and Safa's only taken 95% of the fuel tank compared to Shatura taking the full 100, and it is the case that Safa has got away by a further 1 second after the pits. But now it's about getting themselves back up to temperature, getting themselves back up to speed on a fresh set of racing soft tyres and a heavy fuel tank here, and this is where it's going to be ever so critical for Prelude Gen and also Peepo Ollie to have the perfect in lap, and Safa right now will be effectively asked to do a qualifying lap because he wants to gain as much as he possibly can. And you can see a bit further back, RTA Viper losing out now 2 seconds back on Pierre Shatura, with Gillibrand still in P6. We've got Guile P7, and then it's Bridgens P8 and Per 84 with a very long pit stop coming out P9 behind Bridgens here as they make the way through turn number 3. But as they come through, I can tell you that Prelude Gen staying out another lap here, and the Audi driver going the longest of anybody with Peepo Ollie into the pits. He didn't have enough fuel to go any further. The pit crew are out, but right now Prelude Gen, I mean, this I think is, well, I'm going to personally say I think he should have pitted at the end of that previous lap, because he would have given himself a good in-lap and then been able to come out. If he wasn't out ahead of his peers, he would have been right amongst with them, because now Safa's got his tyres up to temperature and he'll be looking to put in an ultimate lap of the race and go for the fastest lap here, as he is dropping Pierre Shatura as they make their way out of the pits. And as they come charging up towards turn number 1, it's not as though Peepo Ollie can get involved. As you can see, Peepo just leaving the pits right now, and as they make their way on through, Pierre Shatura comes on through and goes a little bit wide out the corner, with Viper missing the exit there, and that's going to be a time penalty, I do think, for track limit, or if not, he's going to have to lift off quite sizably to make sure that's not registered as a track limits violation. I think he's got away with it, and Peepo Ollie comes out just behind Viper, and these two have traded places as they make their way up into turn number 3. But Prelude Gen right now staying out there and not pitting, and this, I think, if it is going to work out for the Audi driver, it is very bold and it's very brave. as he makes his way on through, and surely this time he's got to come in. He does come in, and the next level racing driver is into the pits on the lead, and he almost hits the wall there. My goodness, Prelugent right on the limit, and now this is going to be the critical pit stop. He's coming with 4% fuel remaining. He had coming out of the he had a major advantage of 2 laps in the fuel tank. Can he make it work? Safa right now making his way out of turn 7 and into 8. Well, Safa will be ripping this lap time out. He'll be looking for the fastest lap of the race here to get the advantage on the Frenchman. And remember, when Prelugent comes out of the pits, he will have cold tyres compared to their optimum temperature. They'll be coming out of warm blankets, but they won't be as warm as he'd like them. And Safa making his way out right now. What about Prelugent? Well, they're still putting the fuel in the car as Safa makes his way across that timing line. It's not the fastest lap of the race, however, from Safa, and we can see that Prelugent leaving the pits with only 77% fuel. He makes his way out of turn number 1, then out of the pit lane version of it. There's Safa coming on across. It's going to be very close, but Prelugent is ahead for now, but Safa immediately will tuck into the slipstream here. I don't think it's enough. I don't think Safa's going to be close enough to look for the move, and if Prelugent can get himself up to pace, this is going to be a huge jump back into the lead here for Prelugent. They make their way through, and he's into the lead. So right now, next whole races, Prelugent 04 is ahead of RTA Safa. Pierre Chateau, the best part of 2.3 seconds behind in the run for the top 3, and it's Peter only a further 2 seconds back in P4, and it's RTA Viper P5. That is your top 5, and it's KBR's Gillabrin who's P6, and right now in the last of the qualifying positions of the semi-final. Then we've got RTA's Guile 111 in P7 ahead of Bridgen 62 in P8, and then we've got REA's Per 84 in P9. Last our running tries with the loss of Chicken Wing early on in the race, with the Ferrari having to retire due to technical issues on the car. But right now we look from the back of the pack to the front of the pack, and well, this battle, we couldn't have asked for anything better, because as they make the way towards the end of lap number 17 right now, they will only have 10 more laps of racing, and well, they're almost racing as if it is the final, these guys, as they make their way down through the right-hand Ryokan Rin and into the final corner. And as they come down and around this time, what will be going through the mind of Safa? Well, I think what Safa will be thinking about right now is, did Prelugent underfuel specifically for the purpose of getting out ahead of me, or is it the case that he's just been able to save that much fuel? Because to only put 77% of the tank back in, it is the case that for Prelugent, I think he feels very confident on that fuel tank. And well, we saw just how long he went in terms of on a single tank of fuel. Now, as they make the way up towards turn number 3, it is the case that Prelugent is not able to break away, and Safa looks for the move up the inside. And as they make their way through here, the two drivers side by side on corner exit, and there's nothing between them. But Prelugent does get the better exit with more room to play with and more straight line speed to play with. And as they make their way down towards turn number 4, it is the case the Audi driver, I think, with an absolutely brilliant ability to manage those tyres on that Audi, I think Prelugent will be looking to simply hold Safa at bay until he destroys those tyres. But meanwhile, Pierre Chateau and Pipo Oli both falling back off of this. And right now, I think Prelugent not able to back what is Safa into these drivers. Instead, it will be a focus on just a two-way battle for the win, unless of course anything were to happen that disrupted that order. But we will wait and see as they make the way on around this time. But as they come through turns 7 and 8 right now, it is the case that Prelugent doing everything in his power to just run away with his 6 temps up. He is being slipstreamed back in, but as they make the way into ring corner, if he can make the breakaway, that would be absolutely sensational. It only takes one good lap and one bad lap from his rival, and it could be the difference as he continues to inch away. But he is being reeled in every time, and there's a 1 second penalty for track limits of the final corner for RTA Safa, and with that the Toyota driver will now, I think, will be thinking that he's given away the win to Prelugent unless the NLR driver gets it wrong somewhere, picks up a penalty of his own, or takes his race to pieces. But right now Safa burning that penalty, and as he does so, well, he hasn't lost too much time. He's burnt it quite efficiently, but then you can see it does add up, and what was 0.6 of a second has now accrued to 1.9 seconds. It's a 1.3 second penalty effectively as they make the way out of turn number 3. But meanwhile, Pierre Chateau here looking to try and close up to Safa, seeing that Safa's picked up a penalty. But you can see Pipo Oli closing up as well, and then just behind RTA Viper. Meanwhile, further down, we can see Gillabrin in the last of the qualifying positions, P6 here, and not really gaining or losing on the leaders, and not really breaking away any further than the 9 seconds over RTA's Gale 111 as he makes his way out to turn number 3. We've got Bridgens trying to close up to him, P8, and then we do have Per 84 from REA in P9. But as they make their way through right now, we look back up towards Safa here, as he comes on through at turn number 8, and he will be kicking himself, no doubt, for what was one mistake that was cost him very dearly to go for the run in this race. And as he makes his way into turn number 9 right now, we can see in the YouTube chat there from Sir Bottlejob saying the numbers are in Prelude's favour, I believe, only slightly though. I do agree with you there, Bottlejob. It is the case. I think Prelude right now just has that balance of knowing how the car is going to evolve with that increase in tyre wear. The only concern I would personally have is the fact that he took a bit less fuel than perhaps would have been comfortable. I would say he would have perhaps been looking to target 80% rather than 77% to give him that comfort factor to the end of the race. But then again, the rate at which he's burning fuel out of that Audi right now, not too high. And again, the Audi quite good in its fuel, as we talked about in the pre-program. And as is, I think Prelude Gen right now, really it's his to lose. But of course, the opposite side of the spectrum is, has Safa got some fuel he can use in the car? Can he max out the RPM band? Or is it a case that he now has to just simply settle for P2 and hope that Prelude Gen throws it away towards the very end? We are on lap 20 out of 27. We only have, what are 7 more laps after this one. And as we can see here right now, Safa coming on through turn number 4. His pursuit of Prelude Gen is still there, but he's not quite in the hunt for lead right now. He's just only 1.9 seconds behind, but that gap is oscillating, and it is oscillating away from him, not towards him. As meanwhile, a bit further back, we can see Pierre Chateau in P3, staying 1.8 seconds off of the top 2, with only a second gap to Pipo Ollie from GTB in P4, and then RTA Viper falling backwards little by little here. But I think the Greek driver at this point will not be too much worried about that, for the simple reason he knows if he finishes P5, he will be qualifying for what is round number 2. But meanwhile, Gillibrand in a similar situation, although being reeled in very gradually, in fact, by the Lexus driver behind him and Gar 111 as they make the way through turn number 7 up into 8 here. And could it be the case the Lexus driver comes on strong towards the end? Well, I think if so, he does need to close down a bit more of a gap than what he's currently closing down at, because with only 7 laps to go after lap he's currently on, there's not too much time remaining. And remember, that will be the final qualifying position. And as they make the way on through, it is the case that it will be Goal just simply now wondering what can he do as Bridges is trying to close on up. And I think that Gillibrand is actually pulling back away once again as we look back up towards our leader, Prelude Gen here, who is leading by a sensational margin that's in fact only getting bigger. And I say sensational, 2 seconds doesn't sound like much, but given the close competition, 2.2 seconds, 2.3 seconds now as he continues to inch out that gap. And we say hello there in the YouTube chat to Korgev, who commented on the fact that he's pulling for Prelude for that pit strategy. Indeed, a very strong pit strategy, and it should be enough fuel as calculated by Sir Bottlejob. And indeed, a great thoughts and feedback there from you guys and girls in the chat. And indeed, if you are tuning in right now and you haven't said hi already, do not be shy, feel free to say hi, and I hope you're having a great weekend so far. Indeed, enjoying the racing, as we do see Prelude Gen just simply pulling off into the distance here. I think for Safa, it may be the case that the wishbone has broken a little bit in terms of wanting to go after Prelude Gen, because that gap is opening up, and it is opening up a lot more aggressively than we have previously seen. It has gone up from what was at the end of that previous lap, what was around 2 seconds, it's gone up to 2.8. And as we look at the lap time there for Safa on that last lap of 28.9 versus Prelude Gen on what was a 28.2. 7 attempts is the story on that lap. And I think that right now Prelude Gen could afford, if he so desired, although again he will be the one to decide whether he does it, whether he just backs the wick off a little bit here to calm it down and make sure he doesn't do anything silly. As we see behind, here's the case that Pipo Ollie has passed Pierre Chateau. That happened on the previous lap. We didn't catch it on camera. And the 2 GTBE drivers at this point, I think, will be working in tandem. I think they will feel that Pipo Ollie has a bit more pace and can go hunt down Safa, because on that last lap, it was a 128.5, approximately what was 4 tenths of a second faster than Safa ahead. But remember, it's only over 1 lap, and with 4 tenths of a second, that would put him in the attacking position for the final 2 laps if we do a bit of quick mental math as he makes his way out. And meanwhile, further down there, as we briefly looked away and then we look back, we can see at Pipo Ollie, I thought it was going to be Pierre Chateau going for the move, but these two have dropped RTA Viper quite sizably right now as they come through the corners of turn 6 into 7 here. But the Greek driver soldiering on all the same as he rolls the car through 7 and into 8, and looking good as the Greek as he makes his way on through. As we look from here to P3 man Pipo Ollie right now, well, he's got his teammate right behind him, and well, at the end of this lap, we'll let you know if they have closed up anymore, but I do think it's the case now. Safa's got himself back up to pace because Pipoli, in fact, has lost out a bit of time as they make the way across that timing line. And well, as they go on to what is lap number 23, we look up towards the leader, and Prelude Jen has now set the fastest lap of the race at 28.111. And my goodness, he is pushing. That gap has opened up to 3.6 seconds. He's just in a world of his own. He's on fresher softs, to be fair, so he has the right to these fast laps by default. But it is the case right now, the next level racing driver, I think, was saving it all for that second stint, and he is delivering ferociously. As we say hello there to what is Quiu273 in the YouTube chat, also Zakaria Hamadi in the YouTube chat. Hope you both are doing very well, and well, I can see it there, Zakaria cheering on what his team at GTBE as they make the way down towards turn number 4. And it is the case the two GTBE drivers really have been up there, but I think at this point they're both focusing now on bringing the cars home to the end of this race, because I think one of those situations is that with the top 6 positions all enabling these drivers to go through to the next round, they don't need to throw it away at any point from this point onwards. But meanwhile, speaking of throwing it away, it does look as though it is almost the case that he threw it away coming out to turn number 3, and we're just looking at RTA's goal 111 there, who went very deep into the corner, and as we ride on board, making his way down towards turn number 4. Now, he does have behind him KBR's at Bridgen 62, of course, the Bmw M6 driver. And I think the BMW now starting to come into a bit of an element of its own here in the hands of Bridgens, as the Lexus we're riding on board just seems to be a bit unsettled. And you can see Gold going a bit defensive into 6 there when he doesn't really need to. I think he's worried that Bridgens just has that pace advantage as they make the way down into turn number 7. Now, where could we expect the BMW to be the stronger car out of the two? Well, it's going to be in this middle sector, really, and then going into the final sector. That's where the BMW will be the stronger. The Lexus has a little bit more of an edge on the straight as they make the way up towards turn number 9. But now as they come into the final corners here, this is where Bridgens will really close up. And you can see as they make the way into turn number 10, Bridgens very close. And as they make the way out of the corner and head on to another lap here, they go on to lap number 24. 4 more laps to go for these two. And as they come across, well, they're both battling now for the pride of finishing just outside of the qualifying positions as they make the way into the right-hander. A bit of a hot brake disc there across the BMW Bridgens as he comes on through. But the M6 driver here really going all in to try and close up to go as they make the way up towards turn number 3 once again. But it does look as though these two separated by only a hair's width right now, and it will come down to a small mistake, as meanwhile the fastest lap of this race has been upgraded to a 27.994 from Prelude, who set that absolutely ferocious pole time, of course, of a 27.1, where it is the case he's the only driver to have done a 27 in race trim. And well, it just goes to show you how much our race leader has nailed it since the pit stop. And meanwhile Bridgens, we've nailed it all the way through, including the pit stop, I should really say. But the 3 at the back right now all coming together as Bridgens just loses out a little bit there, under braking into turn number 4, sliding sideways beyond apex. And now as he makes his way through, could we see per 84 close up here from REA in the Porsche 911? We'll have to wait and find out. But meanwhile, our race leader's gone to lap number 25, and as they head on up the hill this time, Prelude continues to hold that advantage. 3.5 seconds. I think Safa has reacted and got himself some pace back on the board here. A 29.2 from the South African last time out. I think Prelude, however, has turned the wick down a little bit after putting in the monster lap, and we can see there it is the case that Pipo, with a penalty, has lost out P3 to Pierre Chatura. And now as they make their way through the right-hander, well, they've changed places once again, the GTBE drivers, but I think it's one of those situations whereby they've changed places, but it's not going to have any major implications for them. And now things are coming down somewhat. We are waiting to see how it all ends, with only 2.5 laps remaining here, but it does look as though the big battles have come to their conclusion. And the one battle we're really now looking out to see whether it does kick off, as we see a 1-second penalty there for per 84, who was off in the distance coming out to turn number 1. But as we ride on board here with the BMW M6 driver at KVR's at Bridgen 62, he looks to try and close up to the back of goal 111 as they make the way down towards turn number 4. But a poor exit there out of turn 3 means he's not able to get close enough as they make the way down the long drop and into that heavy braking zone they can't. But it is the case the M6 right now, whilst rather chunky and beastly, it is not very graceful, and I think it's that lack of grace which is enabling the Lexus ahead to just simply stretch its legs and run away into the distance. That gap, whilst it was only moments ago 0.6 of a second, has now contracted to expanded I should say, to 1.4 seconds, and is continuing to hold at distance. As they make the way through and towards the end of their current lap, we see that leaders have gone on to the penultimate lap right now, as we see Safa here in P2, making his way on through, and Pierre Chatura here once again being closed up by Pipo. Now we just need to take a look, of course, at the fuel, and we can see with Pierre Chatura, for example, I think just enough fuel to go to the end. That tyre wear, however, really encroaching, and we can see meanwhile Pipo Oli with similar fuel but much better tyre wear, particularly on that rear left-hand tyre. We've been able to run the car much more conservatively across all 4 tyres, and then we look a bit further back to Viper here, who took a bit too much fuel in the pits. I do believe he's got a lot of fuel remaining, and as we look up towards our leader here, well, not our leader, my apologies, to our second place man, RTA Safa here, who has enough fuel to get to the end, albeit that rear left is really starting to split open, and then our race leader, well, Prelude Gen, who's got the least fuel of anybody at the front, but to be fair, the Audi good on its fuel. We have talked about that time and time again, and I think right now Prelude just moving this one all the way to the finish as he makes his way up towards turns 9 and 10. As we say hello there in the YouTube chat to Exobrain, who's cheering on Prelude, saying go, go, go Prelude, you are the best. Well, indeed, in this race, he has definitely been right up there at the top and really has been unconquerable, it would seem, as he goes onto our final lap. The white flag is out, and it is time for that final lap to kill off. Prelude leading by a gap of 4 seconds ahead of this man, RTA Safa, who, to be fair, has been with Prelude in the opening stint, but it hasn't quite worked out in the second stint where the fuel consumption came into play, plus Prelude stepped it up a massive gear by comparison. Pierre Chatura P3 ahead of Pipo Oli P4, and then we have RTA Viper P5 ahead of KBR's Killer Bryn in the last of the qualifying spots, who's coming onto his final lap now, and then it is RTA Girl in P7 ahead of Bridgens P8. Bridgens haven't been dropped now and falling backwards towards Per 84 as they make their way onto their final respective lap of this race, and we do have the retirement early on lap number 3 or 4, I believe it was, of Chicken Wing in the Ferrari. So we had 10 drivers start, 9 remaining, and now the final lap is definitely in play, and well, the only battle that we could potentially see, I think, would be the battle for P8 here of Bridgens versus Per, as Per tries to close on up here on the final lap, and he's doing a very good job of doing so as they make the way out to turn 1, and it's up the long run towards turn number 3. You can see Bridgens actually moving aside here, and I'm wondering if Bridgens has decided to give the position up or look to make a comeback into turn number 4, because that was a little bit odd, and perhaps there's a little bit of animosity between the two of them much earlier on in the race, but there will be no animosity for anyone who looks at Prelude Gen right now, as we do, because he makes his way through the final 2 corners. He qualified on pole by a huge margin, and in the end, as he makes his way out the final corner, he will take the win by a huge margin. It is NLR's Prelude Gen who wins pool number 4, round 1, and behind it will be RTA Safa, who comes home in P2. Pierre Chatura from GTB P3 round off our podium ahead of GTB's Pipo Oli, and it will be RTA Viper who completes our top 5 as he crosses the line. And then in P6 and going through to the next round, guaranteed to go through in the qualifying spots as he makes his way through the final 2 corners, it will be the South African driver of KBR Gillibrand who makes his way now through turn number 10 and rolls the car on through. And whilst he wasn't up there with the top 5, he's putting the result he needs to get on through, and plenty more racing for him to come. But meanwhile, it is the case, coming home in P7 and not qualifying through, it will be RTA's Girl 111 in the Lexus here, who despite everything he tried wasn't on the pace of the top 6, and he finishes ahead of Per 84 in P8, and then it is Bridgens in P9. Well, congratulations to all of our drivers, and a special congratulations to our race winner, NLR's Prelude Gen 04 from France. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, well, with that, and what a race it was at the end of the day, indeed fantastic racing, and really it was settled in the end through strategy as well as some overtakes out on the circuit. Here are your race results subject to any stewards' inquiries. NLR's Prelude Gen 04 in the end taking the win by 4.7 seconds ahead of RTA Safa in P2, with GTB's Pierre Chatura lining up P3 and completing our podium. GTB's Pipo Oli coming home P4 ahead of RTA Viper P5, completing our top 5, and then KBR Gillibrand in P6, completing our qualifying positions for what is round number 2 in a week's time. RTA's Goal 111 P7 ahead of REA, I should say, P3R 84 coming home in P8, and then P9, the last of our finishers on circuit, KBR Bridgens 62, and we did have the retirement early on due to technical issues with the car of one Chicken Wing who came home in P10 in the Ferrari. The fastest lap going to NLR Prelude Gen, our race winner, what was a 1:27.994 on lap number 23, and a phenomenal lap at that. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, that is all we've got time for today, and thank you very much for watching. And if you want to know more about the Racing Team Astra community, or indeed the Racing Team Astra Invitational, then why not check us out at the Racing Team Astra Facebook page. That is facebook.com/Racing Team Astra. Alternatively, you can also take a look on Instagram at www.instagram.com/Racing_Team_Astra. But that is round number 1 complete. And next time, in a week's time, we'll be back on Saturday the 19th of February at the same time for what is round number 2, the semi-finals. And we will be heading to the circuit in Croatia, the fictional circuit, but the one that everybody loves, Dragon Trail International Raceway. And in particular, it will be the seaside variation, the one with the infamous chicane of death, and indeed a whole host and variety of corners which have claimed and made series wins over the course of time in Gran Turismo Sport. But until then, we have been the Racing Team Astra Invitational. I have been Paul TX141 Walsh, your host, also known as Britain Spit. And remember, until next time, to have a fantastic rest of your weekend. Remember, stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, but most importantly, remember to stay on track. Good night.